All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is February 27th, 2022. You're now watching Real Talk with Ronnie live. So as you can see, we have a new setup. Things are going well. And, we are streaming now live straight to Facebook, YouTube, Getter, and Rumble. So if you don't have Rumble and Getter yet, please go get it. You can find me there, rumble.com/Real Talk with Ronnie. And Getter, you can find me at Ronald Joseph Lin. So, guys, it is a new week, a new show, and we're the fastest growing political talk show in New Jersey. And I want to thank you, fans, all the fans out there, for watching, for making us such a big show. Now, I've got some very big news. There's going to be a press release out about this in the coming days, but I just want to tell you guys first that I'm very proud and honored to be able to recently sign an exclusive contract with Salem Media Group. So aside from airing on Rumble, Getter, YouTube, and Facebook, starting on March 20th, we will be also airing live exclusively on Salem Media Group on AM 970. So, that's very, very big news. But I couldn't have done it without the help and support of my family, of my friends, but most importantly, viewers like you, right? You're the reason why this show has gotten so big. And I want to thank all my sponsors and mostly my guests too, right? We keep on bringing the great guests on, and they're the reason that this show is big. But most importantly, you out there, the viewers, are the reason that, we are getting so big. Without you, I'm nothing, right? So starting on March 20th, it's going to be the same old Ronnie, but just on a slightly bigger platform. And you know what? This is actually very rare, right? Because, I'm on the cusp of getting huge, right? Just huge. And this is your chance to kind of like reach out to me. And, you could buy me dinner and buy me a drink, get on my good side. So when I do become huge, I will remember you. And, things will be all good. No, I'm just kidding. But I'm just so happy and so proud to be able to, get recognized. Because when I first started this program 2 years ago, it was a passion project. I love politics, and I also like to be in front of the camera. So I figured, why not mesh those two and create a show? And that's exactly what we did. And we create and we bring you a great show every single week. So I want to thank you guys. I want to thank the viewers, all my guests, my family and friends, all my sponsors for making this become a reality. All right, guys. So on my show tonight, we have two extremely great guests, two big guests. One of them is a good friend of mine. So my first guest is Nick DiGregorio. Nick DiGregorio is currently running for Congress in Congressional District 5 here in New Jersey. Nick is a Marine veteran, so we want to thank him for his service, for his heroism to our country. He served, I believe, 4 tours in Iraq and Afghanistan during the outset of 9/11. Well, after the events of 9/11, that's what prompted Nick to forego what most normal kids will be going through. Right? He decided to join the military and fight for his country and fight for his flag. Our second guest is coincidentally enough, his name is Brandon, right? So let's go, Brandon. But we're not talking about the other Brandon in the White House. We're talking about Brandon Michon. Brandon Michon is running for Congress in Virginia in Congressional District 10. He recently went viral because of his take on the school board. He was, rightfully so, criticizing them for not doing much and for perpetually keeping the schools closed during times of COVID. That video has since been watched millions of times. He's been on every single major network, channel, and now he's running for Congress. So my first guest up, Nick. Before we bring him up, I want to play a little clip from his website to introduce him. All right, so give me a second.
None of us will ever forget that day.
Okay. I'm not sure if you could hear the sound, but I was told by certain people that the video clip, that the sound clip.
$67, you can make
Give
as
me
many
1
videos
second.
as you want, and you never.
I was told that the sound clip from that video cannot be heard. If that's the case, I'll play it again later, right? But I will include a link to Nick's site. You can go to his site, nick4nj.com, and you can check out that very, very powerful clip. Now, if the sound did not go through, I apologize. But the consolation prize is that we have Nick on our show. So let's bring him on. Hey, Nick, how are you?
How's everything going?
Good. So I'm sorry that you weren't able to hear the sound.
Yeah, no, I think it's probably fine. I don't know if it was my computer or not, but listen, you said something earlier. First of all, congratulations. It's incredible that Salem Media has picked you up, and I can proudly say that I bought you a drink before you got famous. So proud to know you, buddy, and congratulations to you.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you so much for coming on, and for actually trying to do something to help our country, right?
Yeah.
So Nick, so for all the viewers that are watching, why don't you tell us a little bit about Nick? Who is Nick?
Yeah, sure. So my story starts on September 11th, 2001. I was 16 years old. I remember the towers falling when I was watching them on TV in homeroom in high school. I went to Bergen Catholic High School, about 12 miles away from Ground Zero. I remember the F-15s flying overhead. It was obviously a horrible day for anyone in America, but I think for our communities living so close to Manhattan, we were the ones who had to deal with that human loss. And it was that day that I made my first adult decision. As you mentioned, I decided that I would join the Marines when I got old enough. And that's exactly what I did. And I ended up serving 9 years in the Corps. I deployed to Iraq. I deployed to Africa, all throughout the Pacific. I was in Afghanistan. That was my fourth and my final deployment. And that was probably the most harrowing experience of my life. I think the reports from the front said we were engaged with the enemy 40 times out in the eastern provinces of Afghanistan. I'm really glad that I did it, but I'm also glad that I'm home. And when I got home, I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. So I used this really incredible thing that the United States offered me, which was the post 9/11 GI Bill. And I went back to school. I ended up at Georgetown and I pursued 2 degrees. One was in business administration and one was in international relations. And I completed that in 3 years. And in that 3-year period, I ended up meeting my wife. We now have 2 beautiful children. We live in Fairlawn. Sienna's 2.5. Luca's 10 months old. And I'm running for them. I'm running for every future generation of American. I think that we have a responsibility to pass on an America that was better than how we found it. And I think that we might be the first generation who is sort of at risk of not being able to do that. And I don't want to be a part of that problem. I want to be a part of that solution. And that's exactly why I'm going down to Washington.
Okay, great. Wow, thanks. So that's a very powerful story. So can you walk us through like what went through your head? Okay, first of all, when the towers came down, right? You were in high school still, right?
I was 16. I was a junior. Yeah. I remember that day. My mother was supposed to go into the city to meet my aunt who lived there. And of course, when it happened, I got very concerned. So I called her and I remember no one could get through on cell phones because everyone was trying to make phone calls to make sure everybody was okay. And eventually I finally got a hold of my mother. She had seen the attacks before she had left her home. And so she knew to stay at home. I remember then going through class and there really wasn't a lot of learning being done that day in the school. Most of the time the TVs were on and we were just kind of trying to get our bearings to grasp what had happened. I remember when the towers came down, I couldn't believe it. It was a total shock. I never thought that could happen. Finally, school ended. I remember football practice was canceled. And I remember going home and going with my mother to the lookout point in my town of Ridgewood, where you can actually see the skyline. And usually on a clear day, which it was on September 11th, you could see every single building very clearly. And all you could see was just this black smoke. And I think myself and probably 300 or 400 other people were just sitting there. No one was uttering a word, right? It was the most somber thing that I think any of us had ever seen. That strikes a chord with you when you're 16, right? You start to feel like, hey, maybe we're not that safe. America is this great country, but maybe there's some defending that needs to be done if our enemies can do this to us.
Right. Because, for the most part, I think we are in like a little bubble, right? Like we think that we're the best country, and which we are, right? But we're not really privy to all the kind of stuff that's happening out in the real world, right? Like war, famine, you know. So I mean, when that happened, because I remember when that happened, I was in college. I was a sophomore. I was getting ready to, you know, go to class, and I was watching on TV, like, holy crap, like what is going on, right? So that to me was like very numbing, and I can still I can still recall how I felt.
Yeah. You know, I think America is an exceptional place, right? And I get upset when I see people who don't think that, and I get upset when people who are running for office don't hold that with them. When they go to Washington, they don't believe that that's necessarily true. The reason I believe America is exceptional is because after 9/11, I served in places that were really bad, and I saw how much of the rest of the world lives, especially in wartime environments. And you start to become incredibly thankful for the things that you're given in this country. I mean, we are given freedom. We are given liberty. These are things that throughout the course of human history, very rarely did human beings have those opportunities. We have incredible opportunities, and very seldom does anyone ask us to give back, right? We get these things for free. And I think that what we need in Washington is a group of people who are governing and who are legislating, who believe that America is an exceptional place, and that's how we get better.
Right. Okay. So then, when that happened, you decided you were going to join the, you know, military. Now, what was the immediate reaction from your parents, from your family? Because I know that your father is a, you know, a cardiologist, right? Did it give him a heart attack?
That's funny. I'll give you that one. That's a good joke. It was a hard discussion to have with my family. I remember sitting on the phone with my father because I was too scared to tell him in person. So we had to have the conversation over the phone because I knew that that wasn't what he wanted for me. Mm-hmm. But I do remember us having a heart-to-heart conversation and me asking him if I were to still do this, would he be proud of me? And I think at that point we both started to cry, and he said, of course I'll be proud of you. I'll be proud of you no matter what you decide to do. And I've spoken to my dad since, you know, here we are 20 years later. And he said that that was the moment that he realized that it's not for a father to tell a son what to do. It's for a father to give a son all of the tools that he can to be successful in the environments that he finds himself in. And so I think we both grew that day. And look, I think joining the military is a vocation, right? You wouldn't tell a priest or someone who wanted to be a priest that they shouldn't join the priesthood. They would regret it the rest of their life. Right. So I'm glad that my parents were open to the opportunity, but I also think they saw in my eyes that there was no way I wasn't going to do it.
Okay. Now, after you came out from the you know, military, you went into private sector work, right?
I did. So in 2014, I returned home from Afghanistan. I stuck around the Marine Corps for 2 more years. I was a company commander. I attained the rank of major. And then because I didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do, when I left, I went to Georgetown and did 3 years of schooling there. I think at that point I had kind of studied, you know, business administration, saw an opportunity. I applied to this program at one of the major banks in New York City. They have a program strictly for veterans. I applied to it on a whim. It was, you know, they get about 1,000 applications and they take 10 people. So the likelihood of getting accepted to this program is very small. And so I assumed that if anything, it would be an opportunity for me to just get some experience and learn how to interview for a more realistic job. Right. But I had great phone interviews. They asked me to come in for an in-person interview. And, you know, the end of that day, I was going down the escalator and I said, my gosh, I may have gotten this job. I feel like I had a great interview. And a couple of weeks later, they offered it to me. So I ended up there and spent 2 to 3 years there, learned a lot about the markets, learned a lot about the economy. I think it's made me a much more well-rounded person. But of course, in August of last year, in the summertime, with what happened in Afghanistan, the fact that I was there and we lost 2 guys when I was deployed, to lose another 13 in this shameful evacuation. And it was just something I couldn't countenance. And I was seeing it on TV. It was making me nauseous. And I looked to my wife and I looked at my kids and I said, if we don't do something now, nothing might change. And we've got to do something. This is our opportunity to be, to help, right? And to be useful to our country. That's always what I've wanted to be.
Okay, great. So then this time when you sat down with your parents and you told them, hey, Dad, I might want to run for Congress, was his reaction better or worse than when you told him you wanted to join the military?
Yeah, well, being 36, it was a much different conversation. I didn't have to get his permission, so to speak. Look, my father, I think, is one of those guys who's really concerned about our country as well. He's a conservative. He raised me very much in the conservative tradition. He's always been a lifelong Republican. And so I grew up that way. And so I think when I first decided to do this, maybe for a split second, he said, are you nuts? You have a great job. You have job security. You're paying your mortgage. You're putting money into the 529. But I think at a certain point, if good people aren't willing to raise their hand and forego money and forego the other things that we're told that we should be aspiring to make the country a better place, then there will be nobody to do this. And I think it's important for us to raise our hands when we think we have an opportunity to serve the greater good. And that's what I'm here to do.
Okay, great. Now, for your current race, it's not exactly a smooth path to the nomination, right? There are a few candidates that are also in the race. Most of them have also been on the show. So I want to ask you, Nick, what makes Nick Gregorio the best candidate to take on Josh Gottheimer?
Yeah, I think Josh Gottheimer, for those who don't know, he's been in Congress for 6 years, but he's spent his whole life in Washington. When he was 18 years old, he became an intern for the Clintons. And then he became a speechwriter for the Clintons during the Lewinsky era. At that point, they put him, they made him a lobbyist. They put him in the private sector. He made a bunch of money for himself and for the Clintons. This is a guy who spent his entire life in Washington. And I think to beat someone like that, you have to have a really good contrast. You have to be somebody who has a different story to tell. So when Josh Gottheimer was in his 20s in Washington, when I was in my 20s, I was in Iraq. I was in Afghanistan. I was supporting and defending the Constitution. I think that's important. I think that voters will think to themselves, who do I want to go down to Washington? Is it Nick Gregorio, the guy who selflessly put his time in to serve his country and risked his life to do so? Or is it Josh Gottheimer, the guy who's been in Washington his whole life, traded $60 million in stock options last year, has been getting rich because he's a member of the House Financial Services Committee? I think there's a contrast there. I think there's a story to tell, and I think voters will decide that they want honesty and integrity. They don't want Josh Gottheimer.
Okay. Thank you, Nick. So given your experience in the military with foreign policy, recently, right, a few days ago, I think the world was shocked, or maybe not too shocked, at the fact that Russia has invaded, What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, my thoughts are that we really shouldn't be that surprised. I mean, right. 11 months ago is when Vladimir Putin decided to start massing troops on the Ukrainian border. In 2014, they took the Crimea. They took a region of right. Ukraine. This is not something new. And unfortunately, those 11 months that we were given to try to figure out a solution, the West did nothing. We sat on our hands. We were lazy. And during that time, Vladimir Putin prepared for war. And so, should we be appalled that he invaded last week? Yes. Should we be surprised? Unfortunately, no. I mean, America at this juncture, I think we import 700,000 to 800,000 barrels of Russian oil every day. And this is a new development. We used to be energy independent, right? Russia is a petrostate. By far and away, its biggest export is oil. And so if you allow them the opportunity to make money off of oil, if oil is trading at $90 a barrel, which it shouldn't be, but it is right now, then we have a problem. We're making Russia powerful when we don't need to, right? We should be energy independent. We should be thinking to ourselves, wow, here's an ally of ours, a democratic ally with a duly elected government, a president who wants to stay and fight, patriots who are both male and female, who are Ukrainians who want to fight. You see, they're giving one hell of a fight to the Russian army. We should want to help those people with arms, with materiel, the things that they need to be successful, because they've obviously demonstrated a will to be democratic, a will to be a part of Europe and to be part of our alliances and our friendships. And if we're not willing to support people like that, then we've completely lost our way as Americans.
Yeah. Now, what are your thoughts on the fact that President Biden, instead of offering more help, he offered the president a way out?
Yeah, I mean, President Zelensky of Ukraine said, I don't need a ride out of my country, I need weapons. And I think his words are the words that I think I would have used if I were in his position, right? These are a group of people, the Ukrainian people, obviously want to fight and maintain their independence, and they're willing to do it against tremendous odds. I think it's an abdication of President Biden's responsibility to say, hey, why don't you give up and we can protect you as a person? Well, what about the millions of Ukrainians who aren't getting that deal, right? And I think it speaks volumes of the weakness of the Biden administration to offer something like that, when in reality, we should be offering them solutions to foster their democracy and foster their independence.
Right. Now, how do you think the situation there is going to play out?
Yeah, I think the Russian army has underperformed. I think they're not the army that they thought they were. I think Putin is embarrassed. I think he miscalculated. But I also think that there are just so many Russians, and Putin is pot committed now, that ultimately there's probably no way that he doesn't finish the job. And that probably means the killing of innocent civilians. I wouldn't put it past these people for that. And that's sick. But that's what we're dealing with. And so do I expect that Ukraine will defend themselves and repel the Russian army? No, I unfortunately believe that at some point Russia's going to win. They're going to take Kiev, and they're going to impose some puppet state and force their governance on a Ukrainian people who don't want it. But this is the 21st century, right? This war does not end until there is no more gasps of lungs in Ukrainian, no more gasps of air in Ukrainian lungs, right? This is a fight that if the Ukrainian people want to take it to the hills and want to conduct an insurgency, then they should do that, and we should support that. And I hope I'm wrong. I hope the Ukrainian army succeeds in repelling the Russians and they realize what a foolish mistake they made, and that they should go back with their tails between their legs to Moscow. And I hope that does happen. But if it doesn't, regardless, whether it's a conventional war or a guerrilla war, the United States should be there with weapons and material for our allies.
Okay, thank you. Now, Nick, what is your platform for your campaign?
Yeah, I believe in three things. I believe in a lot of things, but I think the top three here, number one, we've got to drain the swamp, right? We absolutely have an obligation that people like Josh Gottheimer should not be within 100 miles of our capital. This is a guy, like I said, who has used his position on financial services, used his ability to trade stocks to make himself rich off of information that other Americans like you and me and others simply do not have. And that's unfair. I mean, to make $60 million when you make $174,000 a year as a member of Congress, to me seems pretty outrageous and pretty indefensible. You know, the next thing for me, I have a 2.5-year-old daughter. She goes to preschool. One of the key reasons that my wife and I, who are both Bergen County residents originally, decided that we wanted to come back to Bergen County was because, look, we wanted to be close to our family, and we accepted high taxes, but we said to ourselves, well, the schools are great. And now we send my daughter to private school at great cost. And we don't prefer to do that, but we're doing it because we're concerned about the curriculum in the private schools. We're concerned about mask mandates in the private schools. We're concerned about forced vaccinations in the private schools. All of these things that I'm talking about are kitchen table discussions. These are things that parents should have the opportunity to decide for their kids, not bureaucrats from Trenton or bureaucrats from Washington. And so it's fundamentally important to me that we all have an opportunity to decide what schools we want to send our kids to. I don't think a zip code or a socioeconomic status should determine the outcome of a child's success. So that's hugely important to me as well. And then, of course, the third thing, being a Marine and recognizing that after World War II, that we've just now had 75 years of relative peace, we have to create a foreign policy where our allies trust us and our enemies fear us. And we simply haven't done that. And I think it starts with recognizing what we need to do in Ukraine, despite the fact that we've gotten off to a really terrible start. We can fix what we've done, and we can hope for our allies to decide, okay, fine, these guys in the end, they did the right thing. And then we need to go to our current allies like Taiwan, like the Republic of Georgia, like Moldova, countries that seek independence or seek to maintain their independence, have democracies, and want to fight for them. Those are countries we should be going to and making sure that we are supporting. And then I think at home, national security includes border security, right? We have to make sure that in order for us to be a sovereign nation, we have to make sure that we have control of our borders. It's plain and simple. And I don't understand why that's even part of the social discussion. It's a no-brainer.
Right. All right, great. Now, are there any particular issues on your platform that you think you would need to maybe focus on more in order to win this race this year?
I think all of them are critically important. I think if you're running in a place like New Jersey where taxes are high, the economy is obviously going to be critically important too, right? Right now we're facing 8% inflation. That's not sustainable, right? We're going to go into a period of hyperinflation if things don't change. If I'm lucky, I pay $3.49 at the pump for a gallon of gasoline. I mean, that is up over 50% from when you go back 12 months. We're looking at like $5 a gallon for milk. The other day couldn't find the right formula for my 10-month-old son because of supply chain issues. I mean, New Jersey is economically disadvantaged because we have a terribly run state, and because we have to, for every dollar we send down to Washington, they give us 80 cents back. So the economy is incredibly important for us, and the way that the Biden administration is handling the economy is really quite pathetic, and it needs to stop. And I think the way that we get that to stop is first by electing the right Congress in 2022 this year, and then 2 years from now making sure that he only gets that one term that he got, and that we don't reelect him.
Okay,
great.
Thank you,
Thank
Nick.
you, Nick.
Oop, I'm hearing an echo, right? For those that want to learn more about Nick, this is your website.
Yeah, please check me out, nickfornj.com. That's nickfornj.com. I'm also happy to take any emails you might have. My email address is nick@nickfornj.com. Please reach out, and I'd love to hear from you. I look forward to earning everyone's support on the campaign trail, earning your vote, and then winning this thing. So thanks so much, Ron, for giving me the opportunity to talk.
Thank you, Nick. And we wish you the best of luck on your campaign. And I'll be seeing you soon, okay?
Thanks a lot, Ron. Take care.
All right, thank you. Okay, nick4nj.com. What a great guy. You know, he fought for our country, and we thank him for his service, right? And, he continues to fight for it today, through his efforts in, running for office. And I think, everybody who steps up, who runs for office to try to do good is really doing a great thing, right? So I want to thank all the candidates who, step up. But anyway, if you want to learn more about Nick and his campaign and his platform, go to nickfornj.com, nickfornj.com, nickfornj.com. And I think Nick said if you want to email him, it's just nick@nick4nj.com. All right, so we want to thank Nick for coming on today. All right. Our next guest hails from the great state of Virginia. Last year, Virginia and New Jersey were both in the spotlight on the national stage because we had governor's races, right? Jack Ciattarelli came very, very, very close to unseating Phil Murphy, but in Virginia, Glenn Youngkin was able to do that, right? He won a race that he was not supposed to win, right? And I think what happened in Virginia is a very big precursor for what will happen, hopefully this year in 2022. And more importantly, I believe in 2024, right? So my next guest, Brandon Michon, is running for Congress in Virginia in Congressional District 10. Before I brought Nick on, I played a video from his website. There's a video from Brandon's site that I want to play too, but now I'm worried. Now I'm worried that you guys won't hear the audio. But you know what? The video from Brandon's site is only a minute long. So let me just play that, all right? Let me see if the audio is working, all right? So if you can't hear anything, then at least you get to see the video, and you can see the entire video if you go to Brandon's campaign site, which I believe is brandonforcongress.com. But let me just play that video now, and let's just hope that the audio works, all right?
America's slipping into chaos.
Okay, I was just told by someone that they could not hear the sound. I'm not sure what the heck is going on because last week, I played a clip. And the sound worked fine. So I don't know what's going on. So I apologize in advance for the technical difficulties. But anyway, you can check out that video at Brandon's website, brandonforcongress.com. But like before, to compensate for the no sound video, I'm very happy to bring on Brandon himself. Hey, Brandon.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you
Awesome.
loud and clear.
Thanks, Ronnie.
Thank Brandon, Michon, thank you so much for joining Real Talk with Ronnie. It's a pleasure to have you on our show for the first time. Now, Brandon, you are running for Congress in Virginia's 10th Congressional District, right?
That's right.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I grew up in Loudoun County. My wife and I are high school sweethearts. She went to school on the eastern side of the county. I went to school on the western side of the county, and I was blessed with the ability to throw a baseball, and it took me out west on a baseball scholarship where I was a left-handed pitcher, and from there I actually went up to New York City and spent approximately 10 years working in investment banking, and had 3 wonderful kids up there, and was there at the beginning of the pandemic and had an opportunity to leave. Actually had left my job right before the pandemic to do something more entrepreneurial with some friends, and get me some mobility, which my wife and I moved back down to Western Loudoun, where we grew up. And we actually have 4 kids now, and was involved heavily with the open schools movement and Governor Youngkin's campaign on education. And now we've launched a campaign on education, safety, and the economy, and we're going to raise the bar in Washington.
All right, great. So you lived in New York City for 10 years, huh?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I was there during Sandy. Had a 2-week-old and lost power. We were in south, in the financial district area, and so yeah, I've been all around the U.S. So I've been was up in New York, and we enjoyed our time up there.
Okay, great. Now, Brandon, a video of you going up against the school board. Now, this happened when?
So it was just a little over a year ago now that I had my passionate speech to the Loudoun County School Board, and kind of this movement, this parents movement, really kicked off. I spoke to our school board. There's a sequence of events that happened before that, so we can get into that if you want. But really was just fed up with the inability to lead. All these local elected officials. I'd say everyone from local to state to federal level. Everyone always runs their campaign on leadership. And we saw during COVID that a lot of these elected were pointing towards other people to make the decisions. And we were fed up and looking for answers. And I, passionately spoke to our school board and said, it's time to figure it out. It's time to raise the bar. If you're not willing to step up and do it, there are people like me and lines of others who are willing to do that. And it went viral, and, a true parents movement across the United States was lit. Okay.
Now, when you were up there and making that speech, did you ever expect it to get as big as it did?
No, not at all. I mean, I was actually working in my basement of the house I bought here, ripping out drywall up until my wife came and, got me and said, hey, we got to run to the school board meeting. And we've been speaking at meetings for months, actually, on various other topics. But, when there was no alternative motives when I spoke. It was from the heart. What most people didn't see was there was a father who spoke about 5 speakers in front of me who was speaking on behalf of himself and his inaudible special needs son. And the chair wouldn't let him speak for his son because technically he was speaking for someone else. And this is coming from a school board that's supposed to have empathy, compassion for all the students. And right. You're listening to that, that heartbreaking interaction between the school board and this father. And then my son goes up and speaks before me and says, hey, we just moved down here and I haven't made any friends yet. I just want to go back to school. And you look up at these elected officials on their dais, not paying attention. They're down looking at their phones, doing something else. And there was a time when we needed to speak up and say enough is enough.
Okay. Now, since that incident, has your children, have they been going back to school?
Yeah, so we got schools open, I'd say probably about a month-ish after that. I mean, there was a lot of pressure nationally. It became what that speech did was, and I think it's interesting, if you were to Google school board meetings, from the beginning of 2020 until now, there are now hundreds of circumstances where parents said, now I have a voice, now I can speak up, now action can be taken. And if you look pre-2021, I don't think there's that many. And so, I don't know if it started with me, if it started with, it was just a right time, right place, but I think you've seen it all across the country. Parents and citizens and taxpayers are saying enough is enough. We're speaking up to our elected and saying we demand better. And, we've had success locally here, and we still have a lot of work to do.
Okay. Now, from that speech that you gave until now that you decided to run for Congress, what was it about? Was that speech kind of like the trigger that made you think, hey, you know what? I actually have a voice. It's a pretty good voice. It's a loud voice. I have a message, and let me bring that message to Congress. Or were you pushed to run, or what?
Yeah, I actually, so Glenn Youngkin called me the next morning after my video, and he had yet to even announce his candidacy for governor here in Virginia. And he said, this is a message that I think is going to resonate all across, not just the Commonwealth, but across the country. And this is going to start a movement that, people would pay a lot of money to try to create. And so I spent a lot of time with him on the campaign trail, not as an official capacity of his campaign, but just as someone who would go and introduce him or speak on behalf of children and education. And, after the election, and I was hopeful that he would win, and he did, I kind of thought I was done, and my moment in the spotlight was over. And, his team came to me at the beginning of the year and said, we need somebody who we think has a message of bipartisan message and can bring people together to win the 10th district. I mean, our district here is, Loudoun County is a very affluent county. There's a lot of educated people. There's a lot of single issue voters. There's a lot of people who have, concerns on one level. But what we saw in Virginia in 2021 was a 25% higher turnout in the gubernatorial election, which meant people were coming out because there were topics that concerned them. And they came to me and said, hey, we think, there's a lot of stars aligning. I mean, my name's Brandon, so you can kind of see where some of that slogan could go. We're going, let's go Brandon Michon for Congress, playing into some of that. And so there's, maybe it's stars aligning, and there was a door that opened. My background's investment banking, so I feel like there's acute knowledge there that I can leverage with economics and business and, making decisions that impact money. And, so we said, look, there's a time when a father who grew up in Loudoun County, came back here, his voice is resonating. And this is a movement about the people. This is a movement about the 10th, Loudoun County, the 10th district, the Commonwealth, and the nation. This is your voice being represented. This is not about me personally. And so, I view it as an honor to represent, the great people of this country.
Okay. Now, it seems like you probably have a clear shot at the nomination, right? Given the fact that Glenn Youngkin has pretty much asked you to run, right? Are there other people that's currently in the race?
Yeah, there's 10 great candidates in the race right now. I think there may actually one or two more, and there may be 12. I've only met 10 of them. There's a lot of very well-educated, well-experienced people in this race. I think that's a great testament to people wanting to see change. And I think it's a great testament to the weakness of the incumbent sitting Democrat. And so, we're hopeful that we are going to be selected as the nominee in the primary. And when we do, we're going to, win in November. But there's a lot of great candidates out there. And I think, we're sitting in a position that we believe, should hopefully bring us to victory.
Okay. Now, are you planning on getting the, official endorsement of, Governor Youngkin, or?
Yeah. So he and I, we're not in daily conversations on anything. This was his team that ran his campaign. He's obviously in a position now. He's running the state. They're currently in session, so they're really busy. I had the opportunity of being in the room with him, my wife and I, as he signed the executive orders on day one of his, it was actually right after the inauguration. So it was, day one of his administration.
Right.
He's really busy right now working on helping the Commonwealth and following through on his day one plan. Look, I think we have a lot of support across the nation. I think this is not just about one person. This is about the Commonwealth. This is about the district. This is about the nation. We have almost 2,000 donors already. across the United States. So we're hearing from a lot of people who want to see, the House be flipped this year. And so, yes, we're going to be supportive of anyone who wants to endorse us. But this is supposed to be the voice of the people. And we're starting to see that every day as more and more people join the team.
Okay. Now, I was reading a little bit about your district. So District 10, when it was created back in 1952, has predominantly been in GOP hands, right, for the past 60 years, right? In 2014, Congresswoman Comstock won her race, right, by 16 points. 2016, she won it by 6 points. And then in 2018, she actually lost, right, to the current to the current person. And Congresswoman Wexton, who's currently there now, won it by 13 points. And she won it by 13 points again in 2020. So it seems like District 10 has become more Democratic, or with the redistricting process that just went on, how does that bode for District 10?
Yeah, so the former district used to go partly into Fairfax and then partly west into Clark County and Frederick County. Now the new redistricting actually cuts out most of Fairfax and the western side. And so we actually went from what we saw from the 2020 numbers as like a +10 Democrat to a basically 50-50 or maybe +1 Dem race. And so since our message, and the one thing why that's changed over the last few years is Loudoun County has become a very affluent county. There's been a ton of growth within the tech sector and other large companies that benefit from contracts of the government. And so there's a lot of educated people here, and it's become a very affluent county. And as you get that, you're going to have all different types of viewpoints. But we believe our campaign, which we're running again on education, safety, and the economy, that is going to be able to pull 7 to 10% of those moderates across the line, because these are all things that impact everybody. We, one of the slogans, or one of the things we say, not slogans, sorry, one of the things we say is there is no Democrat discount card at the gas pump or the grocery store. It doesn't matter who you voted for. If someone is going to come commit a crime at your business or steal something from your business, they're not knocking on the door asking who you voted for. And with regards to your kids' education, we don't have time to wait for our kids to grow up. They don't have, if you have a freshman this year, he doesn't have 5 or 6 years before he's graduated from high school. So all these things impact us, everybody, now. And so we need to fix what I say is the foundation of our country. And once we can fix the foundation, we can worry about a lot of other, pressing issues, but we got to fix the foundation before we, worry about the rest of the house.
All right, great. Now you've kind of touched upon your platform. Do you want to talk about your platform in more, detail? Sure.
So we're running on education. We obviously think there needs to be a renewed priority on literacy, on math, on science, on history, less focus on indoctrination and political agendas put within our school system. And there's a few things that we specifically want to focus on. We would like to focus on a national literacy program, because literacy is something that can pull all demographics up. We want to focus on financial literacy. My background is finance, and I think financial literacy is something that is greatly overlooked within our country. There are probably more high schoolers graduating today who don't know the difference between a debit and a credit card. They don't know what happens when they take on all these student loans and how they're going to pay them off and what careers they would need to do to be able to cover that, and the real financial ramifications of their decisions as they go into adulthood. And then I think we should focus a lot more on pushing trade schools and incubator programs throughout our education system nationally, because I think there's been so much push for secondary education that there are so many good jobs, really well-paying jobs within the trade sectors, whether that be carpentry, electricity, entrepreneurship, electrician, entrepreneurship, just overall, I'd say more blue collar positions that are internet proof, right? Amazon is not changing the fact that you need someone to put a roof on your house. Amazon or Google is not changing the fact that you need someone to wire your house. And those are very well-paying jobs that not everyone wants to be or is going to succeed at secondary education. So we need to focus there. And then I think incubator programs are extremely important. I think the next person who's going to create a Facebook or TikTok or Instagram is going to come from the 10-year-old today, who in a few years is going to be in a position to either create a company via VC funding or go to some of these large tech companies without having to necessarily go to college. And bringing that technology forward 4 years is going to be very accretive to our society. So that's kind of the education front. Safety, I truly believe it's a no-brainer. You see what's going on in New York right now. You see what's going on the West Coast, where people are just walking in and committing crimes or stealing stuff without any ramifications. We need to support our law enforcement. They have very dangerous jobs and they put themselves in harm's way all the time. So we need to be correctly funding them. But not only that, we need to be prosecuting correctly, because if our law enforcement is able to, arrest or bring in people who've done the wrong thing, we need to make sure we're prosecuting them appropriately, and we don't just have a back door open where they can walk back out. And then our economy, that's a huge issue that we're facing. We're seeing it on a daily basis, not only on the foreign policy stuff that's impacting us today, but oil and gas is going up every day. I just filled up my propane tank to heat my house, and it was $1,100. It was $500 more than last year. Gas at the gas pumps up significantly. Groceries are up. These are all things that we can solve. Inflation is real. Our monetary policy arrows that we normally have may not be able to combat it because the supply chain's broken. And the one thing, Ronnie, that people are not talking about is the labor participation rate. We could raise short-term rates tomorrow, and we will still have inflation, because the 18 to 26-year-olds out there are not working, and they're not incentivized to work. And so I use Chipotle as a very basic example. If you need to pay someone $25 to work at Chipotle is a public company that has to beat earnings every year. They cannot fully absorb those labor costs. And so your Chipotle burrito goes from $8 to $12 because of the labor costs. And that's going to continue to have price inflation even after we use monetary policy. So there's a lot of fracturing within the system, almost black swan event type scenarios that we may not, we may put ourselves in. And I wish I had an easy solution for it, but the solution is not to continue to spend, put our head in the sands and act like it doesn't exist. We're seeing it right now with what's going on over in Europe or Eastern Europe. The Biden administration did not sanction oil. The reason they didn't sanction oil is because they don't want the prices to go up. And if the prices go up further, they're going to have to admit they're going to need to pump more oil locally, which is going to prove that their energy policy that they're trying to push right now is not the right policy. So,
Right.
We need to have some tough discussions. We have a ton of natural resources here that we should be leveraging. And, our economy is an extremely, extremely important part of our society, and we need to get it back on track.
Right. Yeah. I think you make a very good point. Like high gas prices, food shortages, right? The higher price for a Taco Bell, right? These are all problems that are actually like nonpartisan problems because they affect everybody, right? It doesn't matter if you're a Democrat, if you're a liberal,
100%.
if you're a socialist, right? But the thing is, these problems, these nonpartisan, consequences are caused through partisan policies, right? It's the Democratic policies that cause these problems to even be there. So I think this is something that that Democrats are scared of, right? Because they know this. They know that when you piss someone off to the fact that to the point that it's costing them like $100 to fill up their car, that it costs them like a dollar more to get a burger, right? That's gonna have consequences, and hopefully these consequences will be realized this fall, right? Now, Brandon, what are some things besides telling off the school board that Brandon Michon likes to do for fun?
Let's see. I mean, I'm a student athlete, so I obviously enjoy athletics, but I'm actually a big car nut. I have a few old classic cars. I have a 1968 Charger, and my wife has a 1979 Trans Am. So we enjoy going on a casual cruise in those old vehicles, which sometimes we hope they just don't break down. They're old, but I like old cars. But right now I have 4 young kids under 10. Actually, right before this, I was playing old school Nintendo 64 with my 9-year-old, Super Smash Brothers. So I don't know if you remember those ones.
Oh,
so
yeah.
my son and I do a Sunday Super Smash. So I just enjoy playing with my kids. This is like one of the best times in their life. Our children and our youth are the most innocent, the most innocent part of the population, and we have to be looking out for them, which is why this matters so much to me personally. The youth of this generation are going to be taking care of us when we're old, and we need to make sure we're looking out for them, not just in their education, but making sure we build a strong foundation for an economy for them to grow up into.
Right. Now, Brandon, when is the primary?
The primary is May 21st down here. So May 21st. So if anyone's listening who's local, mark your calendar. We'd love your support. People can find us at, check us out at Brandon for Congress, and that's FOR, BrandonForCongress.com. We have almost 2,000 donors so far. We've only been in this race 4 weeks. We're doing stuff a little bit different. We're youthful. We're excited. We got a lot of exciting things going on throughout the county coming up. We got some exciting stuff coming up on our website, so check that out. And I think we have, one of the best slogans in the business right now. My name's Brandon Michon, and let's go, Brandon.
Let's go, Brandon, but not the other Brandon, right? This Brandon.
No, this
right
is
here.
the Brandon the Brandon that's going to raise the bar in Washington. And I say together we can raise the bar, and that's what this is. This is a we, us, and together movement. This is not about me personally. This is about all the people throughout this great country getting, this country back on track and sending people like the founding fathers wanted, people who really, I have no desire to be a career politician. I mean, this is a time when my voice is resonating. I believe I've been put in a position where we can hopefully make change. And, the founding fathers, that's what they set this country up for. They set it up for people throughout the country to go help, have a voice, put things on track, and then go back and continue to be with their families. I'm tired of career politicians who aren't doing this for the right reasons. And we're doing it because we're doing it for the kids. We're doing it for our safety, and we're doing it for our economy.
Great. Thank you so much, Brandon.
I appreciate it.
Michon, we have your campaign site up here, BrandonForCongress.com. So for all the viewers who are watching, if you want to know more about Brandon, if you want to learn more about his campaign, or if you want to donate, right, that's the site to go to. All right, Brandon, I want to wish you the best of luck on your campaign, and we hope to see you back on our show, really soon. Okay.
Well, thanks, Ronnie. Appreciate you having me.
All right. Thank you. Have a great night.
Thanks. You too.
Thank you. All righty. Wow. So 2 great interviews with 2 great people. Brandon Michon running for Congress in CD10 in Virginia. That's his website, BrandonForCongress.com. Brandon for Congress.com. Our first guest, Nick, you can check him out at Nick4, FOR, Nick4NJ.com. And once again, I apologize for that mild technical difficulty at the beginning of both these clips. If you want to check out those videos, though, you can go to their websites and you can check them out. It's on the front page of their websites. And so check them out. 2 great guys. We wish them the best of luck on their respective, runs. And we hope to see them soon. All right, guys. So that's all we have for today for our show. Like I said in the very beginning of my show, I'm very happy to announce that I will be streaming live exclusively on Salem Media Group starting March 20th. That's our first show live, right? So it'll be the same show. We'll still be streaming on Facebook, on YouTube, on Getter, on Rumble. But in addition to that, we will be streaming exclusively on Salem, right? It's a huge company. Some of the talents that they have on their program are Larry Elder, who ran for governor in California, right, last year against Gavin Newsom. Dennis Prager, huge host. Who else do they have? Hugh Hewitt and Joe Piscopo. So a lot of great talents. And, somewhere down there next to them will be little old me, Ronnie Lin. But I'm very happy to get this chance, to get this opportunity. So I'm very grateful. And I want to thank you, the viewers, for making this possible. Because if you did not make this show so popular, if you did not make this show what it is, I don't think it would have gotten, picked up. So thank you very much for all your help, for your support, and for all your love. All right. A few other things. So as I mentioned, I'm streaming on Getter and on Rumble too, right? So if you want to follow me on both those sites, you can check me out, rumble.com/Real Talk with Ronnie. You can find me on Getter, handle at Ronald Joseph Lin. And also to give you guys a little sneak peek, my first show live on Salem, my first guest on that show will be Ms. Kingsley Cortez. Kingsley Cortez is the deputy to the CEO of Getter. She is also the director of operations. And coincidentally, her father is Steve Cortez, a correspondent and commentator for Newsmax. So that's going to be a stellar show. We're going to kick off that first live show on Salem with a blockbuster show with great guests. Kingsley is one of them. So I want to thank her for agreeing to come on. And also, if you don't have Getter, go and get it, right? GETTR. It's the conservative alternative to Twitter, right? It lets you, exercise your free speech. Now, of course, President Trump's social media site just dropped, right? Like last week, Truth Social. I think it's been downloaded like millions of times. I think it actually broke the internet because so many people were trying to get on. So it'll be interesting to learn from Kingsley, how Getter and Truth Social will operate within that same sphere, and we're very happy to get her insight. All right, next week on our show, we have two great guests. Let me just give you a little preview. Next week on our show, we have two candidates who are running for Congress. One of the candidates also hails from Virginia. His name is Jerome Bell. He's running for Congress, I believe, in District 2 in Virginia. Our second guest is Gabby Manalachi. I hope I'm saying that right. She is running for Congress in Michigan, Michigan District 3. So we'll be talking to Virginia and Michigan next Sunday. And of course, this coming Wednesday, we'll be having another Roundtable Talk with Ronnie. Roundtable Talk with Ronnie this Wednesday at 8:00 p.m. So we've got a lot of great stuff coming up, and I'm very excited for what the future holds. All right. So now, guys, you are watching Real Talk with Ronnie. It's February 27th, 2022. Here on Real Talk, we only cover real talk, real news in real time. Fastest growing political talk show in New Jersey, soon to be streaming or broadcasting on Salem. So, guys, I want to wish you a very, very happy Sunday night, a great week. Studies show that those who watch Real Talk with Ronnie have a much better week. Okay, so keep that in mind. Okay, all right. So we'll be on next week. Next week will be March 6th, 8 p.m. Next Sunday, March 6th, 8 p.m. Of course, with Jerome Bell and Gabby Manalache. Okay. All right, guys. Have a good night, and I will see you all very, very soon. Okay. Bye-bye.